Hi, this is Simon from writtenlegalenglish.com and welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about learning legal English and specifically the mistakes you might be making if you are learning legal English. In this video I'm going to be talking about mistake number 2, which is don't just learn fixed phrases or legal collocations. If you want to find out about the other mistakes that I talk about, and at the moment there are 8, but I might add some more, you'll find them all on my blog, which is linked below this video. So click on that link and you'll find the whole blog and an explanation of all of those mistakes. In the blog, I talk about the mistake briefly, and that's the reason why I'm doing this video, to go into a little bit more detail, to give you a little bit more background. So what is the mistake? Well, the mistake is don't just learn fixed phrases or legal collocations, and this is related to the first mistake. Everything that I've said for the first mistake is appropriate here, but here it's a little bit different. I saw somewhere on a forum, someone wrote, I think it was Quora, someone wrote, how do I learn legal English? And someone said, learn legal fixed phrases or legal collocations. This is bad advice. Why? Well, in the first video, I talked about bad legal English and good legal English, and good legal English follows the modern plain language form of communication, which is now practiced in many, many jurisdictions around the world and is enforced by law in the United States as regards how federal agencies should communicate to members of the public. Good legal English doesn't really use fixed phrases or collocations. So in learning these fixed phrases or legal collocations, not only are you just learning these out of context, which is never any good, which is the point I was making in video 1, mistake 1, but you're also learning language which you really shouldn't be using. So this is a bad idea. Why would you learn something which is now going to be considered, in many cases, as bad legal writing? So I strongly advise just learning these and thinking, okay, I'm learning legal English. There is one proviso, and that affects what we call terms of art. Now, terms of art are legal expressions, legal phrases. A lot of them are Latin, but in every single language you will have terms of art for which will talk about the legal system in that particular country or that particular jurisdiction. And that term of art will be a few words which will sum up a legal concept. And that term of art is used because it's a lot easier than writing 100 or 200 words every single time when you're trying to explain the legal concept. So you've got to be aware of terms of art. And I'll link you to a few examples or a few discussions about terms of art below this video so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So whilst you've got to know these and learn these, you've also got to be in a position to explain them properly. So your fellow colleagues, your peers in the legal community might be aware of what these are. But if you're talking to a client or a layperson, of course they won't. Or they might not. So you've got to be able to explain them properly. So even learning terms of art requires context and the knowledge of how to explain it to a layperson. So as regards fixed phrases and legal collocations, what should you do? How should you learn them? Well, of course you've got to learn them. You have to. Even though you shouldn't be using most of them, other lawyers still will use them, and you still have to understand them, and you still have to interpret them. And that's the key thing, because in your writing, you have the knowledge of what they are, but then you will interpret them and use the simpler, plainer, still appropriate, still legal alternative in your writing. And that's the key thing here. And of course, going back to the point I made in lesson 1, structure is key. If you've got a terrible, passive, horrible, clause-ridden structure, then it doesn't matter if you simplify 1 or 2 things. It's the structure that's letting you down. So simple structure, simpler alternatives to these fixed phrases and legal collocations, and you'll have much better communication already. And of course, in the process of doing this, you're learning a valuable lesson, which is you're starting to think about why you're writing and the important person in that writing relationship between the writer and the reader. And of course, it's the reader. There's no point writing if the reader can't understand, which is why the simple structures and the simple alternatives are so important in legal writing. And it's why good legal writing is understandable legal writing. Be sure to check out my free legal English exercises. There's a link below this video to that page, and on that page you'll see a series of exercises in which you can practice your plain language redrafting skills. In those videos, I take a horrible legalese text and I translate it into plain language, explaining what I'm doing along the way. And of course, that's exactly the process that I've just been talking about here as regards fixed phrases and collocations, using simpler, straightforward language to communicate the same legal point. Okay, be sure to check out the other videos in this series. Be sure to visit my blog, and I'll see you again soon.